Hello, this is Steve from Bedo's Leatherworks, and today's project is this pretty cool Redwing 1907 mock toe boots. Now, the customer sent these in and said, can you resoled them? I go, yeah, we do this all the time. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people who do it also. This is a very common repair. It's not a very difficult one to do. Just remove it, re-welt it, new soles, polish them up, and you're done. Now, the difference is going to be, this has a second stitch on the welt. This is almost like a Norwegian style stitch, but it's just there for aesthetics. It's nothing really structural that's stitched to the uppers. It's just a regular split welt with the vertical part has a stitch on there too. Now, most cobblers will do, they'll replace that with a regular split welt and then send them out the road. Very few will order the welt already pre-stitched and offer that service. Okay, this is a split welt with the stitch already there on the vertical part. Now the problem is, what if the customer says, hey Steve, can you do a green stitch? Well, most cobblers will say no because they can't do it or they don't know how to do it. I always say anything's possible, and that's what it's going to look like when it gets done. We'll take a split welt, we run a stitch on it with a color thread, whatever color customer prefers. I've done these plenty before, blue, red, brown, whatever, it doesn't matter, white. And that's the green thread that's going to be on there, the vertical part and the flat part right there. And we're also going to do a green midsole matching the green thread. I don't know why green, that's what the customer wanted, you know? What the customer wants, the customer's going to get. So we're going to do a basic full sole job, very similar to all other cobblers. And but we'll have the light color split welt with two-part stitch on there in green, a midsole, and another thin leather midsole, and our Christy soles. All right, let's get started. Man, it's a rainy day today. I don't know about you guys, but I like the rain. It kind of calms me down. Some people hate it when it rains. I'm completely opposite. I like it. This is a very straightforward job. It's nothing difficult about it. Just basically removing the sole, removing the welt, and adding new welt, clean the uppers up, new Christy sole, and you're done. I think it's going to look nice once it gets done. Now another detail is that the splice of the welt, you can't just cut it and just let it butt join against that because you're going to have a lot of loose threads on there. So I'm going to show you guys how we do that. It's a little bit of process because you're going to have to make the vertical part stitch looks like it's continuous, but you can't really do that. You can't join these two together unless you stitch them. Then you join them. Then you got to hand stitch that part across that, bridging that gap to make it look like it's continuous. It's kind of tricky, but it looks flawless once it gets done. Now, this is a 360 welt, by the way. The welt goes all the way around the shoe. The other one from ankle to ankle bone is a 270 welt. Yeah, as far as the joint of the welt, when it comes together, a lot of guys will butt join it. Basically, they just cut it and they just keep it like that. But there's always like a slight gap. I like to overlap mine. When you overlap it like this, and it kind of makes it look like it's continuous. But the problem is, on these split welts, trying to overlap that, it gets a bit tricky. But it can be done. It's nothing difficult about it. It's just a little bit more time consuming. But the end result is very nice. Like how it should be. All right, this is the easy part, taking it apart. All right, let's continue. All right, once we've got it apart, we're going to go ahead and do a good cleaning and conditioning and polishing it up. Because since we're going to do a light color welt, we want to make sure we take care of the uppers beforehand so we don't get any dirt on the welt. And this is what it should look like. Now sometimes if you can avoid getting polishes on these mock toe stitching, that would be wonderful. However, you can't do that sometimes, you know, because it's unavoidable. So what I'd like to do in this case, I put a thin piece of tape right here and then put some polish. We are putting Saphir, add a little bit of color. What color is this? This is 78. .78 light cognac. It just adds a little bit of color. Now, Saphir does make a oil-based leather. This is a Chrome XL for this particular kind of product. For this leather, that it's like a leather balm, but it's mainly for oily texture. I do have that, but I wanted to add some color first, and that product doesn't really add color. It does come in different colors: brown, neutral, black. But the problem with that, I don't want it to get on the mock toe area. So once we put the cream on there, we can go ahead and do the entire boot with Big 4, condition it up, and make it look very presentable. Now you're not adding really, you're still keeping the patina of the boot there. You're not really making that surface solid tone, which we don't want. We want it still to have that broken in look, some light and dark areas. And I think it'll look real nice with a light color welt. All right, let's continue. I mean, this is a bit extreme, you know, putting polishes on. And I know some people are going to say, hey, man, stop wasting your time. What's wrong with you? You know, if I can avoid getting the color on the stitching, you know, I would. But most of the time, it's a little difficult to do so. But you know, for video's sake now, we might as well do it just to entertain you guys. Because Lord knows you all need entertainment. Alright, and that should do it there. And now we simply come in. You can use a sponge, you can use a rag, whatever you want. I like to use my middle finger. Just rub it in like that. Alright. Got to be careful of these white stitches here too. We will. Voila. Alrighty, we've got our welt with the green stitch on there, stitched on. I didn't show you that because I've shown it before in other videos. It's pretty boring, just stitching on the tabletop. Now we get to have a good time stitching the welt on the boot. Again, this is kind of one of those boring things for you to watch me use my jerk needle. Hey man, that's not a jerk. That's not a jerk needle. That's a jerk with a needle. That never gets old. So when I come back, I'll show you guys a stitched on welt to boot, and I'll show you how I do the seams over here so you guys can see the difference. All right, let's continue. All right, so here we are, the beginning and the end, okay? Now, you've got to skive that down. We're going to mark it right here. We're going to cut it off right there, and we're going to reverse skive it on this side. Reverse skiving means basically this is skived on the bottom, this will be skived on top. And when you bring that together, it should be nice and flawless, right? Now you got the issue of this stitch now. These stitches here, obviously you can't stitch that with the machine. It's not going to work because you got to put it on the boot first. So here, once it's glued together, I take a little needle on this thread and I go ahead and hand stitch it through the opening right here. And once it's hand stitched across there, it kind of bridges that gap, and it'll look much better than, obviously it'll look much better than what you got now. It looks much better than you've got two pieces of leather like butting against each other like this, and the threads are fraying at the edges. This is much more of a finished look. All right, let's continue. All right, and that's how we do it here. It's gonna look cool once that second stitch comes along. It'll look real nice. All right, let's continue. All right, we got some JR soles. This is the original JR logo, the older JR logo. This is an 8/9 size, which is pretty thin. We're going to use that as a midsole. Give it some structural support on top of that green midsole. It's hammer time. A couple of hammer times today. So somebody was asking me why hammering the two, the sole to the shoe. Well, you're putting glue on the surface of both areas, right? So you let it dry for about maybe 10-15 minutes until it becomes a little tacky. So you have to hammer that together to bond the glue together of both material. That's the reason for hammering. Now, do you have to hammer it? No, not necessarily. You can use a press, which I also do at the same time, but hammering kind of contours the shank area, which the press doesn't really have that. They have it on the heel or on the front part, where it presses the front part of the sole to the shoe. So hammering is essential. I do it all the time. Besides, I didn't have a press for the longest. For many, many years, I didn't have a press. For 30 years, I didn't have a press. I got this press probably, maybe not, yeah, 30 years, probably more than that. I got this press maybe about 5 years ago. And I use it occasionally, so. But that's the reason why we use a hammer to hammer the two materials together. So you get a good bond and to get all the air pockets out of it. All right, I hope that helped. Let's continue. All right, so I've got the green thread, same green thread that we used for the vertical part of the welt. And we want that large size stitch to match that vertical stitch. And we open up a channel here to countersink the stitches, because once the sole comes on, right, if that sole ever wears out, it gets removed, and the next cobbler can just lightly sand the surface without touching the stitches. And you can just glue on another sole. Damn, look at that. Wow. That looks really cool. Nice, huh? Yep, I like it. Let's continue. See, I use the press also. Not just hammering. I want to give a shout out to the person who sent me these knives. There were like 3 of them, I think. I'm sorry, I don't remember who you were. I apologize about that, but thank you very much for the generous gift. I really appreciate it. As you can see, it does come in handy when you're cutting something thick. When the blade of the other knife is a little too short, this comes in handy. I hope you're watching, and I want to thank you for your generous gift. Cool. All right, welcome back. We are done with another project. I think these turned out pretty cool. I think the color green with that brownish shades pops really well. And you're not going to find anybody who's doing the double row stitch on the split welts the way you see it here. Sure, you'll see different color like the manufacturer offers with maybe off-white thread or white thread. But different colors, blue, red, green. I've done plenty of those in the past, and I think the contrast with a lighter welt color, it looks really, really neat. And the thin green midsole, also with the JR leather sole, and the Christy rubber soles, vibram soles. I think overall it turned out pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with it. Now, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. We'd greatly appreciate it. Thumbs up, comments, good or bad, I'll take it all. If you have any questions, email me. Now, please, when you email me, don't just say, hey, I got a shoes or boots, can you fix it? How much it's going to cost? It doesn't work that way. It would save me great time if you could put pictures with your email so I can see what you're talking about. Or else we're going to go back and forth a few times before we get to the source of the problem to try to resolve it for you. So if you can, please put some pictures with your email and give me a description of what you're looking for, and therefore I can answer it for you as best as I can. And the email address is bedos@yahoo.com, bedos@yahoo.com. And if I've got stuff of yours here, please be patient. I'm doing the best I can to knock these out. I think the next project is going to be these indie boots. I think this is going to be my last repair restoration of the year, so maybe this will come before the year's up. Okay, again, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys again on the next project. Take care.